Hello and welcome to 3 Simple Steps to Stop Drinking. My name is Patrick Fox and I am known as the Sober Life Coach. And in today's training, we're going to be looking at the model that I use in the work that I do in helping people to stop drinking. I'm going to go through it in lots and lots of detail. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for being here right now. Thank you for taking the time to attend this evening. I can see more people are joining as we've getting started, so that's fantastic. At the end of this, there's going to be a Q&A. So if you've got any questions you want to ask me, feel free just to drop them into the chat box as we're going through, because then what I'll do is at the end is I'll be able to revisit them. So don't expect an answer straight away, but for sure, put a question in there or just wait until the end and then you can ask me anyway. So thank you for your time. And I think it's really important that if you're here now, giving me the time to listen to this webinar, then do what you can to get the most out of it. Now, what that looks like for me is turning off the notifications on my phone, turning off any alarms, putting the phone on silent, especially on the computer, right? Like we're just inundated with notifications. And actually, that is part of what I'm going to be showing you about today is that when we get those notifications, we get like a little release of dopamine, similar to what alcohol does, but on a much lesser scale. And it's enticing. Like we want to check it. We want to feel like, oh, who's messaged me? It must be important, right? So it's just how the brain works. So just turn those off if you can, because I know that they're very distracting. And let's get through this. Let's see how we can help you to rethink your relationship with alcohol. So in today's training, what you're going to learn, firstly, is this training right for you? Are you in the right place? Is what I'm going to be teaching today going to be relevant to where you are in your journey? I'm going to say the answer is going to be 100% all the time, because not only is what I'm teaching today relevant to stopping drinking, it actually can be used in a much grander scale in terms of your life, in any kind of decision making that you make. So we're going to look at how you can rethink the drink. We're going to talk about the 3 simple steps. And then we'll look at, or as I'm going through it, I'm going to be sharing my story, kind of like interweaving how I stopped drinking and through the work I do with my clients into each of the different elements of the 3 steps. And finally, at the end, as I said, I'll give you some options if you want to find out more about how you can work with me. And then we're going to have the Q&A where you'll be able to get your questions answered, or if you've already done so, popping them into the chat. Okay, so who am I? My name is Patrick Fox. I am a certified life coach. I'm a stop drinking expert, and I help my clients to stop drinking and live a sober life. This is available to absolutely anybody. It truly is. I do not believe that there is anyone out there who is genetically destined to live a life of alcoholism, for example. I really do believe that anybody can stop drinking at any kind of level of their dependency with alcohol. I think it's really important just to say that. Now, this training's for you if alcohol is affecting your relationships. The number one relationship it's going to be affecting is with yourself, right? But then also, how is it going to be affecting other people around you? Perhaps it's family members, partners, perhaps it's even children. Children was one of the biggest reasons why I actually changed my relationship with alcohol. Now, that was true for me. And hopefully, as we go through this, you'll start working out what is going to be true for you. Now, if you feel like you're caught in a trap of not wanting, can't stop thinking about it. So you are making all of your decisions around alcohol, where you go, what you do, like the day is kind of really just kind of like heading towards when is that first drink going to be? Or do you feel like you're drinking against your own will? Like you really have had enough of this, but keep finding yourself drinking. And perhaps you can't understand why you can't stop. Perhaps it feels like you've tried everything. Well, I want to show you in this training that there is so many different ways and paths for you to change your relationship with alcohol. Or maybe you forgot the reason why you're even drinking in the first place. And again, it just feels like you're going through that start stop cycle and it's just not fun anymore. So you want to break the habit, but you're not sure how. You're not an alcoholic. Now, really, that word is so broad. It has such a gray area to say who is an alcoholic or who is not, because I think there are many, many people in the world functioning very well, but drinking excessively, which is having an impact on their physical and mental health. The challenge we have with alcohol is that it isn't always visible. We don't see the damage we're doing until later on in life. So if it is a problem in your life, if it is causing you to feel like it's a problem, then it's a problem. It doesn't matter how much you're drinking. And if you want to know you want to stop, and you know that your life would change as a result of stopping, this training is definitely for you. So you want new habits, you want a life without worrying about triggers. You don't want to you want to be able to go out with your friends, right? Or go to a bar or a restaurant and not be living in fear of the bartender asking if you'd like something to drink and then like panicking and thinking that you're going to have a drink, right? Like that is not a good place to be taking this journey from. And I'll show you how. And also the last thing here is if you have had enough of alcohol in your life. So when people ask me about stopping drinking and some of the challenges that are laid before them, like what is it that gets in the way of people asking for support in the first place, right? Now, before I even read any of this, I just think that a lot of the time it's our feelings, it's our fears of what people will say or think about us. It's the feelings of shame or guilt, right? It's the and as we go through here you can see the options are stigmatizing. Previously, this is changing massively in the world right now in the sober communities, and they are becoming less stigmatizing. And this is part of the work I want to do, is just kind of like bring the awareness that it's okay if you have a challenge with alcohol in your life. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you are weak or powerless. Okay. It doesn't mean any of those things. So perhaps you don't want to label yourself an alcoholic. Like this is another big thing why people avoid it. They don't want to go and sit in meetings and declare themselves powerless or an alcoholic. It works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for a lot of other people as well. So we have to have that balance of options, right? And it, look, rehabilitation centers can be very, very expensive. And from what I've heard and in my experience, that they don't always address the root cause of the reason why people drink in the first place. So there can be, even then, is like a merry-go-round of being in and out of rehab because never getting to that root cause of why somebody is drinking in the first place. Also, there are a hell of a lot of unhelpful societal assumptions and beliefs. I live in the UK. I'm not sure if anyone here is in the UK as well, but right now we've been in lockdown. It's like our third lockdown in the UK, and we are coming out of that. There's been a plan announced this week about how the different stages, depending on what we can do, how many people we can meet, etc. And it just feels like the whole nation, all they really want, all they're thinking about is going down to the pub. It's going out and having a drink, getting messages all the time, different groups I'm in. I'm seeing it on Facebook. This is the society we live in. Like a lot of people drink, especially here in the UK. So there's a whole level of almost like peer pressure of an expectation that you should drink. And then if you don't drink, people go to that place where, well, you must be an alcoholic. Like you can't be in control of what you drink. And that is not true. So shame, embarrassment, guilt, even pride can get in the way of people asking for support. And this is true for guys especially, is like thinking that asking for help is a sign of weakness. asking for help is one of the most powerful things that you can ever do when it comes to stop drinking. It doesn't mean that you're admitting defeat. It doesn't mean that you're admitting that you are weak or any other of that bullshit that gets bandied about. It means that you are here and you are ready to make a decision. Also believing that you should be able to stop by yourself, thinking that you should be able to fix it. You should be able to work it out. Now, as humans, we're very good at problem solving. But when it comes to something like alcohol, and because of the impact the alcohol has on the brain, it isn't always as straightforward as that. So we need to have other people around us who can offer us different perspectives. So the other thing is a fear of a life without alcohol. Like, this brings up a lot of stuff for people. How am I going to have fun? How am I going to relax? What am I going to do when I go out with the girls? What am I going to do when I go out with the guys? What am I going to do with my partner? Especially when you are in relationships that started out primarily because of alcohol. Like, that could be with friends, well, family, especially, right? Like, with a lot of times people are brought up in a family that drink alcohol. So to be that person who doesn't drink alcohol in the family is where all of that society stuff comes back in, all of that peer pressure. And finally, yeah, so families, friends, partners. There's a lot of reasons why people don't want to reach out for help. So what I think is particularly awesome and what I am massively driving is the Alcohol Rethink Project. That is an organization that I am starting, and it is something that I'm seeing out in the world where people are really massively beginning to rethink their relationship with alcohol. The sober consciousness in the world, if you like, is starting to wake up. Like, there is more talk about drink. There's more talk about the damage it does. There's more talk about the reasons why people drink and the realizing that perhaps we've been misled. There's more options. You don't have to just attend an AA meeting to stop drinking these days. You've got rehab, for example, whether that's for you or not, it's entirely up to you. You've got life coaches, you've got support groups, you've got Facebook, I've got a podcast, the Alcohol Rethink podcast. Like, there is just information everywhere these days, and it's getting more and more. If any of you guys perhaps are from my Facebook group, Becoming Alcohol Free, you can see there how many people are ready to make this decision not to have alcohol in their lives anymore. Just look at the alcohol industry as well, right? A picture there of the non-alcoholic beers. These companies are realizing that people are changing the way they view alcohol. They're changing their behavior in the way that they live their lives. And they are still cashing in on it. They are bringing out alcohol-free beers instead. And then we've got all of the different communities on social media. It's been a massive thing, which is why I think the sober consciousness, and I've just coined that phrase, if you like, is really coming up because people are witnessing other people stopping drinking. They're seeing that there's different ways for them to stop drinking. The people are seeing that they're not the only one. And this is so important, so important. And then we've got organizations like Drink Aware. I think they are a UK based one. And we have Alcohol Awareness Week and Dry January and Dry July. More and more emphasis is being put on changing their relationships with alcohol. Like, the people seeing how it affects families, how it is affecting adults, mental health, even younger generations. Although evidence suggests that, younger people, millennials, they are stopping drinking. Like, they are choosing not to drink alcohol, which I think is amazing. And, when a generation like that starts making a decision, hopefully it has that ripple effect. So it's pretty awesome time, if I'm quite honest, to stop drinking, because there is so much more availability out there. There are nightclubs that you can go to which are completely sober, where nobody is allowed to drink. How amazing is that? Obviously, not right now with COVID, but very, very soon, all of these things are going to be coming back out in the world, and it's going to be awesome. So we are here today, and we're going to be looking at 3 simple steps to stop drinking. So we've got our little guy on the image, like 3 steps. These are the steps that I take my clients through when they want to stop drinking alcohol. And as I said, these steps can be used way beyond stopping drinking. They can be used in all areas of your life if you're willing to go through the process. What I want to say before we get stuck into the 3 simple steps is even simple requires effort. That means that these steps are simple in essence. They're simple in the way that I'm going to explain them to you, but they still require work. For some people, that work will be less than others. I don't think there is one easy way to stop drinking. Well, perhaps there is, but I think that it takes effort still. It requires you to have a outside perspective of who you are as somebody who drinks. It's going to require vulnerability. It's going to require honesty. It's going to require forgiveness. So these steps are simple, but within each step, you're going to see what it takes. Okay. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to share these with you now. And do you like this picture of the cat, by the way? I'm not sure it's real, but I can imagine if it was, it took a lot of effort to make a very simple picture. Okay, so here we go. This is the model that I use with my clients. It's called the ACT model. So the first step of the ACT model is awareness. Awareness, and this is perhaps possibly the biggest area of this work that you'll have to do. It's certainly where the most impact is going to come from. And then from your awareness, it comes down to choice. And then from choice, it leads to transformation, which is why I love the acronym of this model being ACT, because literally it is taking you into action. But it's so, so important first to stay at that stage of awareness. I found this quote when I was preparing this webinar for you guys today, and it really, really resonated with me. And it's by Nathaniel Branden. And he says, the first step towards change is awareness. I believe that's true in anything. The first step towards change is awareness. The second step is acceptance. So when you become aware, when you give yourself new knowledge, new insight, new perspective, that's the acceptance is in the choice that you have of that new information, of that new knowledge. The second step is acceptance. When you accept what you have relearned effectively, then that is where you get to make the choice to transform. I like looking at dictionary references as well of what specific words mean. And here we've got awareness. So awareness is the state or condition of being aware. So it's having knowledge, it's consciousness, which is why I talk about sober consciousness and how we are seeing that showing up in the world right now, how I see it in the numbers in the Facebook group. I see it in the numbers of other coaches, other therapists, other psychologists out there who want to help people to stop drinking. You know, there is a big consciousness coming of sobriety. The next thing is choice. So choice is an act or an instance of choosing, it's selection. And then finally, transformation. So that's the act of or process of transforming. You have to follow these 3 in anything that you do, ideally. So when you become aware, then you have a choice, then you can make the change. These are the 3 simple steps. Let's look into them a little bit more for you. Awareness. As I said, it is huge, a massive, massive part of this. And as you can see from my little bubble cloud here, this is where you're going to spend a lot of time, especially in the beginning. Now, you can see from this word cloud here, I've put things like self, family, alcohol, willpower, books, beliefs, options, desire, choice, JOMO, FOMO. There are a lot of things that you can learn about in the beginning, especially that are going to help you to stop drinking. And now I'm not saying that you have to learn every single thing about yourself, about alcohol, about the industry. You know, that's too much. But all it takes is one thing, one item of learning that will topple over everything else that you believe about yourself or about alcohol. When I first stopped drinking, well, I tried a couple of times to stop drinking, really. Like, I would make a lot of excuses about why I wasn't going to drink. So I did a marathon one year and I said I wasn't going to drink because I was training for the marathon. That was true because I did think that not drinking would help me in my performance. But the underlying reason, the real true reason, was that I really had enough of alcohol. Like, I just wasn't feeling great drinking. I really wasn't thrilled with how my life was. And there was this knowing, like, underneath, that if I stopped drinking, that life would change for me. So when I had these moments of saying that was going to do something, it was always under a false pretense almost, because I was lying to other people about why I wanted to stop drinking, which meant that I was lying to myself. I was denying to myself the true reasons why I wanted to stop drinking. I had the shame, I had the embarrassment about not wanting to drink alcohol. And guess what? Months later, it ended up in me drinking alcohol again. And then it took me a couple more years doing similar things before I finally stopped. And when I finally stopped, the reason for that, I believe, is because I had started to be aware of, much more conscious of, how alcohol was affecting me. And I didn't like the hangovers. They actually got worse each time I stopped drinking because the tolerance level dropped a little bit. And I started reading this Naked Mind, which is by Annie Grace. I highly recommend it to anybody who would like to stop drinking. I started reading that. I started finding out about alcohol. I started finding out that alcohol was ethanol, and ethanol is what we use to power planes and cars. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm putting petrol into my body effectively. And then I started realizing how the alcohol industry have marketed to us that wine is good for the heart. And basically, it's a load of bullshit. And I just started realizing that so much of what I had believed about alcohol was, in theory, complete nonsense. I began to see that the reason I was drinking because I thought it made me more confident or it made me more funny was absolutely garbage, because it didn't make me any more confident. I didn't really do anything different when I was drinking apart from drink more alcohol. So the awareness is a huge, huge part of the stopping drinking experience. It's understanding why you drink. Let me just move on to the next slide. That's going to make more sense. Because when you raise your awareness, question everything. Well, I highly recommend questioning everything. So things like looking at, why do you desire alcohol? Perhaps you don't know. And that's not a problem, because why would you know? So you desire alcohol because you've taught yourself how to drink, and you've taught yourself to drink to relieve stress. You've taught yourself to drink to get confidence. You've taught yourself to drink to relax. This is all very normal behavior that is encouraged by society. You've only got to watch TV for a couple of hours and see how many unconscious references that we are getting that alcohol is used in certain situations. This is what we're getting. Like, we're getting this messaging all the time. So the reason we desire alcohol is because we begin teaching ourselves that drinking to change the way we're feeling is the answer. And the more we do that, the dopamine gets released in our brain, which is pleasurable. Like, this is the thing, right? Like, alcohol is pleasurable. Like, it does release dopamine in the brain, but it comes at a cost, right? Because the more you drink, then it starts shutting other parts of your brain down, you know, important parts like decision making and memory. And then when these things start getting closed down, this is when the blackouts come, like when you start doing stupid shit when you're drinking alcohol. And the more you drink alcohol, the more it takes to release the dopamine. So you actually build up the tolerance. You have to drink more to get the same effect. Then we've got to look at why you think you drink. So what are the reasons that you think that you drink? They are probably radically different to when you first started drinking. Or perhaps when you first started drinking, you weren't even acutely aware of why you were drinking. You were just doing it to fit in. I know I certainly was. The reason I started drinking is because I wanted to fit in with a different crowd at school. I wanted connection, which is ironic, right? Because we drink for connection through alcohol, but alcohol just has us disconnected with ourselves. So looking at why you think you need to drink, what are you've got to raise your awareness of, like, where are your triggers? What is it that makes you want to drink? And there are going to be a lot of them around. For example, me going to football games was a trigger. Me, I mean, anything, weddings, parties, funerals, christenings, these were all areas where my mind had this association that this is where I drink alcohol after work on a Thursday, Friday, going out all weekend. Like, as we grow up, as we go through life, we create associations. And it's these associations that we need to bring our awareness to, because when we do that, then we can begin to see why our behavior, like, goes off in that pattern of drinking, which exactly is my next point, right? Like, what habit have you created? And then when you raise your awareness of what alcohol does, what it really does to you, how it, like, is literally a poison. When you drink it, your liver, your kidneys, they have to work incredibly hard to start getting rid of the perceived toxin. Well, not even perceived, like, get rid of the toxins that are entering into your body. Your heart has to work harder. And we know, like, liver and kidneys, like, these are the things that get really affected over time. Thankfully, though, the body is an incredible healer. And in as little as 6 months, as long as the damage is not too bad, your liver can, like, literally regenerate itself. Even the brain begins to repair once you stop drinking. I think it takes longer. Like, if I think about my journey, like, a couple of 1 to 2 years before I really started getting that clarity, but it's absolutely different for everybody. And it also comes with a willingness to keep learning, to keep developing, and keep growing effectively. So understanding why you drink, understand how it's affecting you. So over on the right hand side here in gray, you can see that a lot of the answers to those questions there, or those sentences, it comes down to what we believe. It comes down to what we value. Now, the trouble with alcohol is that it is in conflict with what we value a lot of the time. So, for example, so value is something that you hold dear to you, that is very important for you in your life. So if family is very important to you, but you're drinking, and when you drink, you end up saying something to family, you have arguments, you have fights, your family begin to distance themselves because they don't like being around you when you're drinking, you're in conflict with your value. When you're in conflict, a natural thing for us to do as humans is to try and change our state because it feels uncomfortable. We don't like that feeling. And then if you've taught yourself to use alcohol, you use alcohol to try and get rid of the problem, but it's alcohol that's causing the problem in the first place. And then another thing to be really aware of is you're going to have lots and lots of reasons why you drink currently. So when you raise your awareness of all these reasons why, and those questions on the left here are really going to help you to kind of get some answers towards those. Your brain is thinking that alcohol is important because you've got all these reasons why you drink, and what you want to do is to start creating more reasons why you don't drink, why alcohol is no longer part of your life. You've got to start, like, shifting the scale of reasons why you drink to reasons why you don't want to drink. But you can only do that once you have awareness of why you're drinking in the first place. So I was going to sip of water, talking too much. Okay, so other reasons or other things to bring into your awareness is, what are you fearing? What is it that is keeping you drinking? Because behind stopping drinking, what do you think will happen? Now, you might not be aware, which is Perfect, because that's the whole point of the exercise, is to bring awareness to what you're making it mean about stopping drinking. If you stop drinking, do you fear that you will lose your friendships? Do you fear that you will lose your partner? Do you fear that you won't be able to have fun or that life will be boring? You have to be aware of these fears. We don't have to be, but it pays to bring them to your awareness, because then you get to make a choice, which we're going to look at very shortly. When you know what your fears are, you can begin to see them as being really highly fucking illogical, and that you don't have to believe them. Other things that you can do to raise awareness are to look at the facts of alcohol. As I said, This Naked Mind, I think, is a fantastic book, and it does a lot around the alcohol facts. I have something called the Alcohol Rethink Project, which is a 30-day email series. Highly recommend doing that. Every day I share with you alcohols around, I don't share with you alcohols, I share with you facts around alcohol, reasons why you won't want to drink. Okay. And then start bringing into your awareness, like, what is possible if I stop drinking? How could my life change if I stop drinking? That is exciting. When you begin to start looking at how you can live a life without alcohol, that helps you to start changing what you believe. It takes you away from the past and puts you into the future about what is possible. And then you've got to look at challenging these beliefs you have around alcohol and the beliefs you have around yourself and your capability or capacity to stop drinking. And finally, on this one here, is being willing to be wrong. You know, our beliefs, what we believe to be true in the world, we believe for a reason, and we can become very attached to what we believe. You probably noticed when you've had a discussion with someone and you think one way and they think another way, you want to get your point across, right? Now, it's no different with yourself, within how you're thinking in your own mind, is that you want to be right. Like, your brain wants to be right because that's what it's designed to do. So when we have to look at ourselves and when we have to be wrong about what we've previously believed, that takes courage. But behind that courage, behind that willingness to be wrong, is a sober life. So the human brain is hardwired for survival. I was going to give you a little bit of a neurological example here. The only purpose of our brain really is survival. Like, our brain, when it gets up in the morning or goes to bed, is like, did we survive the day? Perfect, job done. Now, what's happened is that since the caveman days, where survival was very, very important, right? Like, we couldn't survive if we weren't in a community. We couldn't survive without fire. We couldn't survive without food. We couldn't survive without sex, right? Because we needed to procreate in order to sustain the communities. So our brains learned that pleasurable things were what helped us to survive. Now, fast forward here to 2021, and we live in a world of abundance. Like, there, we have everything for us. We don't have to think about catching food. We can just go to the local shop. We don't have to think about finding wood and flint to make a fire. We just turn on the electric heating. We don't have to think about many, many, many things now that used to be important for our survival, because we have evolved as human beings. The challenge we've got is that we've evolved so quickly that the brain hasn't actually caught up. It still lives in survival mode so much of the time, which is why we get these feelings of like anxiousness often. And it perceives alcohol as important. It thinks that drinking alcohol literally means life or death because of the pleasure that is associated with it. So when you find yourself not wanting to drink, but thinking about drinking all the time, it's like the mind has misappropriated what it means to drink alcohol. It doesn't realize that drinking alcohol is causing damage to your mental health, your physical health. It just associates alcohol with being something that is pleasurable. I think that's really such an important thing to understand and to help you to move past feeling like guilt or shame about why you think about alcohol or why you want to drink. Like the reason you want to drink is because that is what your brain wants. Like it's nothing about you, it's just how the brain has misinterpreted what is important for survival. Now, these are my lovely feet on the beach, and I want to talk about this for a minute as well. Alcohol, when you drink alcohol to relieve anxiety, when you drink alcohol to have fun, when you drink alcohol to relax, you are teaching yourself that that is what you need in order to feel those states. You are teaching yourself that you can't be relaxed, you can't have fun, or you can't be confident unless you have alcohol. Alcohol then becomes alcohol is the problem, which also then becomes a solution. So often when we're younger, we drink because we perhaps haven't developed our emotional intelligence yet, because that's not something that comes, well, we're always emotional, but our brains are developing. Like we don't have that prefrontal cortex part of our brain fully developed till we're about 25. But if you're like me, like here in the UK, it is not uncommon to be drinking at like 14, 15 years old, whilst that part of your brain is still developing and you're drinking, which is actually like hindering it. So when you use alcohol to solve for something else, you are actually like masking the problem or thinking that the problem or the solution to the problem is alcohol. Now, I was thinking about this and I came up with an analogy, which is why you've got a picture of my lovely toes there, and there's sand on them. So imagine when you go to the beach, when you get sand on your feet. I particularly don't like sandy beaches and even gravelly, stony ones, because when I get sand on my feet, like I don't like walking. I don't like the feel of it between my toes. And the only way to go and get the sand off of my feet is to go into the sea, right? But as soon as I leave the sea, I get covered in sand again. This is exactly what alcohol does. It's like the problem becomes a solution. The problem of having sand on my feet is going back to the sea to get rid of them. But going to the sea is what is causing the sand to stick to my feet. Mind blown, right? So you have to be able to walk away from the beach with sand on your feet still. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to feel great. Like I'm speaking for myself, but maybe you can find something in this analogy. You have to walk away from the beach. You have to just put up with the sand being on your feet, because then you get to go off and wash it off somewhere else and dry it and walk away with like sand-free feet. I think that's so important to see. That is that when you're drinking to solve something, you're never solving it. You're just teaching yourself that you need something else, and you have all the answers inside of you, each and every one of you. Which moves us on to the next part of our three simple steps, and that is choice. Like we all have a choice to stop drinking. We all have a choice in any given moment, in anything that we do. Even if life is shit, we still get to choose how we want to think about it, because we can either sit there and we can get pissed off and dwell on it, or we can think about how we want to change it for ourselves. And to have choice, we need to have awareness. We need to create that awareness. So when you begin creating that awareness in your life, when you begin to start telling yourself or showing yourself what alcohol really does, why you don't want to drink, then you get a choice. You get to think about what it is that you'd like to do instead. Now, here's the thing. When you have a choice, your brain very naturally is going to want to default to what it's always known before, because that's just what brains do. There's something known as the motivational triad, where we seek pleasure and the brain seeks pleasure, avoids pain, and it's efficient. Thinking back to that moment ago where I was talking about pleasure and alcohol is pleasurable to the brain, like this is why, because the brain associates pleasure with survival. That's part of the motivational triad. So we have a choice when it comes to this new awareness that we've got, but the mind is going to want to default to what it already knows, because it wants to stay efficient which is why being willing to be wrong is so important. Because when you're able to like sit in that, actually, what I've believed about alcohol before is a load of bullshit. Like the reason why I drink, these aren't really valid. They're excuses why I keep drinking. Not in a judgmental way, but just knowing because the brain likes the pleasure of alcohol. I recently watched The Matrix again. Like this was one of my favorite films. Just when I was leaving school, I think it was, and I watched it obsessively. And I was ill a couple of weeks ago, and self-care, right? Like this is a big part of stopping drinking. Is like being able to look after ourselves. I took a day off work, and I had in the beginning, like I felt a bit bad about it. I felt a little bit guilty. But you know what? It was exactly what I needed. And I just decided that this is what I needed. I had a choice. Like I was aware that I wasn't feeling 100%. I was aware that by showing up to work, like I would not be giving my full self. And I didn't want to be doing that. So I had a choice and I chose to take a day off. And I watched The Matrix again. And there's this point in the film where he says, like, do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? Sorry if this is a spoiler if you've never seen the film, but it's very, very poignant because the red pill in the film kind of symbolizes what it is like to want to change your life. Like if you take the red pill, this will change your life. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You might not like everything that you see. You might not like everything that you have to do, but it will change your life. Or do you take the blue pill? The blue pill is blissful ignorance. It's continuing to do what you've always done, even at your own cost. This is what we get. Well, we have this all of the time, no matter what our situation. Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a Holocaust survivor. He was in I think it was Auschwitz for years during World War II. And even in the most dire of situations, he was able to be in that situation and come out of it without resentment for what had happened to him, because he knew that if he was to leave and to continue feeling resentful and like pissed off and like every reason to be, like I can't even think of the words right now for that because it would just be, it's so extreme, right? But he left and he knew that the only way that he would be able to move through life is if he changed his view about what happened. Not to say that he agreed with it, but changed the way that he was responsible for his life, his choice, how he wanted to think about this. I highly recommend going and reading that book for you. Choice, right? And then once we have choice, once we raise our awareness, we've got awareness plus choice equals transformation. And the thing with tipping scale, that you can, like, have lots of beliefs, of reasons why you drink. Okay, outweigh the reasons why you don't drink. But the more choices you begin to make, the more you begin to change your mind about alcohol, the more you begin to scale so much is inevitable. And I'm going to wrap up this bit with one short story about transformation and about habits, especially during the last winter. My partner had cleaned in the kitchen. She'd done some cleaning and she ended up like swapping around some utensils in the kitchen. She put the kitchen knives that previously were in the drawer and we'd put them into the cupboard. And I knew this. I'd seen her do it. And then that evening I went to cook. And then I went to cook and guess where I went to reach for the knives? I went straight to the drawer because that's where they'd been before. And no more than about 5 or 6 times did I keep doing that. I kept going to the knife drawer, even though I knew that they were in the kitchen cupboard now. This is what's going to happen when you try to change, or not even when you try, but when you are changing your relationship with alcohol. Your mind is going to want to default back to what it's always known before. It wants to go back into that automated. Maybe you've even had it, right? Where you'll be driving somewhere and you completely drive past the way you're supposed to be going, driving to like your family home instead. Is because your brain has almost switched off. It's gone into that being efficient, right, of the motivational triad, and it's just doing the thing for you. So when you're changing, when you have awareness, when you have choice, you're not always going to like have a rapid response rate to what you want to change. Like your brain is going to kind of like, it's going to want to keep bringing you back. But this is where you have choice. Like you can either get pissed off about it and think it means something terrible about you, or you can say, okay, well, this is exactly what my brain is designed to do. It doesn't mean that I have to listen to it. So that is the power of transformation there. How to stop drinking. So through transformation, some of the most important things that you're going to do or have to learn how to do is your urges. How can you manage? Use alcohol, get away from going out. It's about telling yourself alcohol hard day work. Okay. Think instead. It's about choosing discomfort, which kind of ties back in. Journey to sobriety is not all about sunshine and rainbows, guys. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. There are going to, it doesn't feel great, but things to remember are your brain, your body, they're healing. That even when you are feeling like nothing has changed, just remember your brain and your body are healing. And with time and patience, you'll get exactly where you want to be. And you do that through awareness. You do that by creating space for yourself. The next thing here is celebrate. Honestly, celebrate the shit out of yourself. Every little milestone. Do you know what? Every day of your sobriety is a milestone. Every time you go out to the shop and you don't buy alcohol when you normally would have, celebrate that. Because the more that you can feel proud about yourself, the more that you can celebrate what it is you're doing, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're teaching your mind that this is no longer who you are. Like you are showing up as somebody different. And you do that by talking to yourself. Now, this might sound a bit weird, like, oh, I don't walk around talking to myself, but we are anyway. We are anyway. You're talking to yourself right now about what I'm talking about, right? Like, this is how you create new beliefs, is how you talk to yourself, because the more that you tell yourself something, the more times that it kind of gets ingrained into your mind, the more that you believe it, the more that it becomes a new truth. This is what it takes to stop drinking, guys. And I'd just like to talk about what life coaching is and how life coaching can help you stop drinking. So, life coaching is having the opportunity to speak with someone else without any fear of judgment for hearing what goes on in your mind. Often we have no idea what we're thinking. We just have, they say, around 60,000 thoughts a day. We just can't have the conscious capacity to know what all of those thoughts are. So, when you're working with a coach, when the coach is asking you questions, it helps you to dig deep into your subconscious mind and to find out what it is that you're believing about alcohol. You get to understand the way you think and how you can change it, how you can create new beliefs, how you can manage urges, how you can stop drinking and get more results of what it is that you want in life. Coaches give you accountability, focus, clarity, sense checking, and you get to learn the skills and tools to coach yourself, to bring awareness to what you're doing in your own behaviors. And an awesome coach will show you where you're limiting yourself, and they're going to show you how to move past it. They help you to believe ahead of time of what it is you want so that you can create it. They help you identify your fears and do it anyway. Behind stopping drinking is a whole lot of fears. When we realize what those fears are, when we shine a light on them, when we can say to those fears, you don't scare me anymore, you can break free of the cycle of drinking alcohol. When you realize that there's nothing to be afraid of, that you can handle your emotional life, that you can have fun, that you can be confident without drinking alcohol, that you can relax, that you can de-stress, like whatever that feeling is that you want or desire from alcohol, you can create it for yourself. That is what a coach does. A coach helps you to understand and how to create feelings. And it's about taking radical responsibility for your life so you can achieve things that you never thought possible. So some of the benefits of life coaching in stopping drinking is, well, the number one benefit is uncovering the root of your problem so that you can solve it once and for all. The root of your problem is always going to be what you're thinking, what you're believing. When we grow up, we find ways to protect ourselves because we're young. Like we find ways that serve us back when we're young, but then we bring them into our adult life. So if you use alcohol when you were younger to kind of like cover up whatever was going on for you, some insecurities or fears or doubts, then we just end up bringing that all through our adult lives. I know I certainly did. So helps you juice or eliminate desire so you can stop drinking, finally put the issue to rest so you can use all of that energy, all of that time that you spend on alcohol or thinking about alcohol, like that gets to be put into something else. You get to create something else with all of that energy. How exciting is that? So you get to manage your emotions. We don't get taught this in school. No one tells us what our feelings are. Like, yeah, we get shown some pictures of like, here's a happy face and here's a sad face. And I'm reading an amazing book about this at the minute called How the Brain Works by Lisa Feldman Barrett, I think her full name is. And, like you can look at a happy face or you can look at someone crying, right? And no, 95% of people are going to say, yeah, they're sad. But what if they're crying for joy? What if they're crying with happiness? What if they're crying because they've got a promotion? We think that we understand what feelings are, but really we have no idea. I think feelings aren't what people look like. Feelings are what we feel inside our body. Very much reason why they're called feelings, right? It's the sensations, the vibrations that we have in our body, and there are nothing to be scared of. When you're able to drop in and to feel those, you can do anything and you can create those emotions. So break free of alcohol, like bring that joy into your life without drinking. You can do that. Like, but sobriety is not boring. It truly isn't. Yeah, maybe you go to sleep a little bit earlier than normal, but that is perfect because it means you're getting the right amount of sleep that you need. It means that you're waking up fresh. It means that you're able to do more in your life that you want to. So I'd like to tell you about the features of my 12-week stop drinking coaching program and why you might be interested in it. Now, the coaching program that I've got is based on proven successes or processes even, yet it's bespoke to your needs and situation. Now, I recognize that when I work with my clients that we can all be on different levels, have different kind of timelines of how quickly or how long it might take to stop drinking, depending on the kind of work that we have to do. So in those 12 weeks, I'm able to really quickly notice the patterns and then put together the best way for you to stop drinking. I'm a highly trained coach. I certified with the Life Coach School, who are a company in the US, so feel free to check them out. And I'm also an ex-drinker. I've stopped drinking alcohol. I've done this journey. I know what it takes to be someone who no longer wants alcohol. Literally, I can go anywhere in the presence of alcohol and not give a shit. And that, if you'd known me the day before I stopped drinking, would never have thought possible. I didn't even know that the day before I stopped drinking. Like, that's how powerful this work is. The way I work are 12 one-to-one coaching. So the first session is 90 minutes. That's where we have a real deep dive. We look at your values. We look at the reasons why you drink and why you don't want to drink. Like really start putting that anchor together of what it is that's going to help you to stop drinking. And then the following sessions after that is 60 minutes. Each week you get a unique video. So in the same way that today I've delivered what we are looking at, I share a weekly lesson. I share with you something that's going to help you to unlearn your desire for alcohol. The weekly coaching sessions are on Zoom. Lessons are shared with the private link, which is on YouTube. So nobody else can see them apart from yourself. times are flexible. I work all the way around the clock pretty much. I have WhatsApp support for the duration of your package as well. So in between our calls, if something comes up, if you get triggered, if you have an urge, you can reach out to me. You can text me or WhatsApp me and we can work through it. Not a problem. And in each week, you either ask for homework or not. It's entirely up to you. But I guarantee, like the work we do, you will be amazed at how much you will change in 12 weeks, not just in stopping drinking, but what you believe about yourself, what you believe you're capable of achieving. So if you are interested in working with me, if you are looking to stop drinking, you like what I do, you like what I teach, then I'd like to invite you to work with me. My 12-week stop drinking program is usually £1,200. But because you guys are here, because you are, I know you're willing to do the work, right? Because that's exactly why you're here this evening. I am offering the 12 weeks at a live training price of $995. So that offer is going to be available for the next 72 hours. So if you're interested in working with me, working through that 12-week program, you can have that offer for $995 for the next 72 hours. You're going to get an email shortly after we finish this evening, and it's going to have a link. And now, if that's what you want, you can click on the link and find out more, and we can get started as early as next week. Now, I've only got 9 slots available for coaching clients at the minute, so they won't all be available for everyone, but I will do my best to accommodate. And let's get on to the Q&A. So guys, I've been talking a lot, so I'd love to hear what questions do you have about the presentation this evening? What questions do you have about stopping drinking? It's an open forum. Whatever you want to ask, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait and see what comes up and we can go through it. So if you want to pop that in now, just let me know. Just so I know that text is working, perhaps you haven't got any questions, but like if you want to ask a question, raise your hand. That will let me know. Okay. Anna. Anna's just asked, what advice can you give for cravings? Cravings are urges, right? Like a craving for alcohol is where you've began to have a thought about wanting to drink. That thought has created the desire. Now, when you start thinking about drinking, remember that you've done that many times before. So, which is why you feel like that compulsion almost that you want to have a drink. What I would recommend for you, Anna, is when you notice that you are craving a drink or you have an urge to drink alcohol, if you can, that is a perfect time to just sit down and, if possible, close your eyes and just feel in your body. Where are you feeling that craving? So ask yourself, what am I feeling in my body right now? Okay, start to notice whether you feel it in your chest, whether your chest feels tight, or whether you feel it like if you've got a knotted stomach or your shoulders feel tight. Like that urge to drink is an emotion in your body. When you can sit there and you can kind of almost breathe into it, you can just allow it to be there, it will pass. Like there's no way that it won't pass. It has to pass. But when we try to suppress it and pretend it's not there, it's just going to bubble back up again another time, right? When we drink alcohol, we actually just reinforce the behavior that we need to drink in order to get rid of cravings. Remember, the problem becomes a solution. So for cravings, it really is about just sitting in the discomfort, knowing that it's going to pass. Perhaps there is a pattern or a routine that you can get into for yourself in doing this. Perhaps maybe it's like getting a pen and paper and writing down what's going on for you. The thing about cravings is it's a really great idea to first step of the ACT model, right? Like raise your awareness. What have I just been thinking that is creating this urge for me to want to have a drink? Where has this come from?